Welcome to the show. It's episode 17 of the XDI Experience Live show. Today, we're out on Facebook, we're out on LinkedIn, we're out on YouTube, and a big thanks to all of you for watching. We're just trying to bring attention to innovation, engineering, and manufacturing. Yes, each week we talk about the entire product life cycle, and this week we are diving right into the top 4 smart manufacturing headaches. Ready, set, let's go. Welcome back. This week we are confronting the 4 main headaches that many of us go through when it comes to implementing smart manufacturing solutions. Christoph Grauer, who, if you've seen some of our more recent shows, leads SBS for smart manufacturing in North America. And he's going toe-to-toe with Nishant, who I've known for a few years now and has risen through the ranks lightning fast in the $11 billion Atlas Copco, the industrial equipment manufacturer. He's global lead for Industry 4.0. Now, he also does a podcast. Now, I'm going to mention this to you just because he's kind of joining the bandwagon and trying to get the youth of the day, of today, to join the whole kind of smart manufacturing product lifecycle area. So he has a podcast that goes out every week on a Monday. He's in season 1. He's on this 4th episode. Check it out. We're going to throw it into the feed. Take a look at it. Really interesting stuff. He calls it How Did They Get There? And he's taking industry leaders and seeing how they got to their prominent senior positions. So without further ado, let's welcome them both to the show. Hopefully. Where are you guys? Come join me. Aha, hey. Christoph, Nish, how are you, gentlemen?
Good. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Doing good. Sunny Miami. I trust all is well over there.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking.
And Nish over in the UK, I understand you're getting ready to lock down again.
Yeah, so I'm based out of North Wales and we've been locked down already for the last 2 weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens after this because apparently we're not following the England guidelines. But yeah, it's interesting times as the year continues.
Yeah, that's tough. That's pretty tough. Okay, so Today, gents, we're doing things a little differently. We've got 4 sections today, covering those big 4 headaches, of course. The idea is that you both are going to get chance, we hope, to get 2 minutes to pitch out your beliefs and answers to these questions. After that, we're going to go open forum. And after that, we're going to reach out on each occasion to you, the audience. So remember, as an idea comes to mind, as a question comes to mind, jump into the comments there, over there, or down there, depends whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and make those comments, please. So today, gentlemen, 4 main areas we are covering is a minimum viable solution the right way to start up? And if so, why is it therefore that so many never manage to get beyond that initial adoption to move it widely and at scale? Number 1. Number 2, why do so many smart manufacturing programs fail? Number 3, what makes a successful smart manufacturing project? And lastly, how do you go about putting together the business case? So, Christoph, Nish, if you're ready, we're going to get things moving. We're going to start it with you, Nish. Question 1, is a minimum viable solution the right way to go? And if so, why is the conversion to full product so low?
So I absolutely believe, Andrew, that the minimum viable product is the way to go for smart manufacturing, because firstly, it's not a concept that gets followed in manufacturing at all. It's a new concept to them. And it is important because traditionally manufacturers have known to go for these big enterprise projects and try to do everything at once without building anything modular to start getting. And we see, a lot of these projects are failing when companies are trying to adapt. That is, the culture to do this doesn't exist. They're not addressing the right problem statements today. They're trying to choose technology over the problem statement. So they're trying to throw whatever the new technology is and trying to expecting that it's going to do miracles, which it doesn't. And they do not have an identified problem owner in the business. They try to push it top down. So expecting that we're going to push this new piece of software and everybody's going to use it. It doesn't happen like that. People need to have intrinsic motivation to pick up on any of these changes.
Same old mistakes. I get it. Thanks, Nish. Christoph, you got a couple of minutes. Run in. What do you think?
See, Andrew, my take on this is very simple. I mean, all manufacturing companies, you take the broader context, they try to bring products or more innovative products out to their customers faster than the competition. This gives them at the end an edge. And this is no different for software companies, and this is no different for manufacturing IT programs, right? So the approach with an MVP is the right one to really strip down overall massive solution to a tangible MVP that you can release to your audience earlier, gather that feedback, right? Reiterate that feedback into your product, make your product better and better, making it really fitting the needs of your customers on the shop floor.
Yeah, but isn't it just the age-old problem that most organizations are so built on making everything perfect and nobody dare make a mistake, therefore minimum viable is so much less than perfect, so to speak? Isn't that what's slowing everybody down?
That's a point. That's your point of view in that case, or this maybe from some companies. I would say no. I mean, the moment you release an MVP, and I will come to the pitfall, it creates value, or it should create value already. So the faster I can bring that on the floor and have the people working with it, there's a business value associated with that. Now, the problem is, or the challenge is, what is an MVP, right? What is it supposed to do? How do I break down my solution into one or multiple MVPs, basically? And we have to keep in mind, and this is a big mistake that a lot of companies do, is they really strip down a solution to 3/4 of the footprint. And the solution was supposed to solve multiple tasks on the floor, right? And now they give these 3/4 out there that is not really helping anyone. So keep in mind, if you talk about an MVP, you want to address at least one problem on the floor end to end, right? And it's about the user experience. And if you release anything, first of all, if your solution or your MVP does not solve one problem end to end, then you don't have an MVP. And if you release
jump in there, Chris. I think it's also about the culture to actually, pick that up and run that. Firstly, allowing to fail in the organization when you're trying these MVPs, and being able to go fast because that is not how industrial manufacturing companies have traditionally been set up. They like doing the same thing again and again and doing it correctly. Whereas doing MVPs, having the culture to just pick up on these topics or these methodologies, which are have come from a lot of startups and other agile organizations, is I think it is as much linked to culture as anything else.
Nish, but let me ask you this now, especially when you think about when you work for Atlas Copco, a massive industrial equipment company, and this might be the case internally. Now think about it. You work with external parties, right? You work with a lot of consulting companies, I guess. I think it's quite challenging for a consulting company to go in there to senior management and tell them, hey guys, you know what? Get used to it, and you have to accept failure. I mean, at the end of the day, they are paying these guys to make them successful. So
Well, see, that's if you think failure is a bad thing, then you will never improve or iterate, because failure is a way to learn. So if you can fail quickly, you are creating more value for yourself, because you can figure out, do you continue with this or try another route? Or traditionally, a lot of big enterprise projects have failed, but they haven't been iterating. So they took 3 years to deliver something that doesn't work and spend millions in that. So failure
is part of the learning experience. But exactly. Do you really want to be paying an external party amount of money to go through a learning experience? I'm not sure. I understand where Christoph is coming from.
The ownership is not on the consulting company. The ownership is on the business. You have to, as a business, define, what you're trying to do. Just expecting external companies to come and do something for you, that's not going to help you build on the smart factory solution.
Yeah, at the end, it's your transformation, right?
Yeah.
Good. So basically, agile that we've been talking about, a minimum viable solution / product, is very much a cultural thing as much as it is actually a methodology. Very good. Thanks, gentlemen. That is the first section. We just covered it. I want to reach out and see what we got coming in from the audience. We've got a lot of little comments going on there. Thank you. Hello, everyone. We've got a first question here. It looks like, I guess, the way to go is not what technology to use, but rather what are the pain areas for the organization, and then start from there. Agree, disagree?
Absolutely agree. I think it has to be the problem statement that you target, not throw technology at everything. So machine learning can not improve your bad process.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I think about it, always depends on which industry you are, right? When you really think about that, and I think we spend too much time and money actually in selecting platforms and stuff like that, than really identifying the problem and see how we can solve them.
You bet. Next question. We got one just coming, it looks like, from Umi. How do you go about finding the right technology / industry for technology fit for my business? Nish, you want to have a run?
Yeah, so I think it comes on the same thing as you previously said. You have to firstly identify where your business stands today. So there are a lot of these digital transformation surveys that you can do, and there's some really good ones across different organizations. And we have used one from a German one called VDMA. You can do these free assessments to figure out, what you're benchmarking compared to the rest of the industry, which gives you a starting point, and then figure out, understand by talking to your people, not just your R&D team, not just your production team, your entire company, understanding what are their pain points, trying to figure out what technology exists that don't even are aware of, can fix some of these things. Because there could be somebody doing data entry 8 hours a day, whereas actually, we can write a script to do that. But it's not because they can't do that activity. The problem is they're not aware. They don't have the time to focus on anything. So it's important to find the right problem statement and then identify the low-hanging fruits, which is specific to your organization. And the biggest thing that I can suggest is work with partners. So there are a lot of, depending on whichever country you are or the networks that you have, you can always reach out to not just vendors, but also manufacturers and other companies, other organizations who might be going through the same thing, and even university partners who can actually help you with this.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Gentlemen, section 1. Let's move to question number 2, which we're going to start up with you, Christoph, which is, why do, therefore, so many smart manufacturing projects fail?
Right. So I think in my experience, one of the main reasons, or at least I bring it up first, is really that a lot of companies jumping the hype bandwagon too early. So I'm really convinced that business needs should push really IT or technology transformation within an organization, right? So, and what I see is a lot of leaders out there actually, they love buzzwords. They want to be pioneers in some areas, right? Even in emerging trends. Jump it too early. Maybe they are personally, it's kind of hobby of theirs, or they're very interested in that, etc. There are multiple reasons. So they jump too early. They did not really do their homework. So they base their assumptions basically, I would say, not on complete feasible and let's say reliable data. They mapped out the vision in their minds. And you might face multiple of these leaders in a company. So what happens then is when they go down this path, either with a POC or etc., you will see that deviation of different expectations from the different parties, right? And it would not be the first engagement that I've seen that got completely shut down because it was launched under completely unrealistic expectations.
I do not know why any of us do any form of purchase in any form of life now without having fully investigated what something can do for you, what's involved in doing it. I mean, for want of a better, forgive me, but know your shit, quite frankly. What can Industry 4 technologies, what can smart manufacturing do for you? Know your business gaps, know your best practice. The one thing I know about you, Nish, is ever since I've known you, you know your stuff, and you're a customer. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. You shouldn't be just
no. So to contradict there to Chris a little bit is, I don't think we have enough of those visionary leaders in industry that can actually push their companies to do the. I agree with not having a clear strategy mapped out, not just doing a top-down push. So if you're not bringing the company on board and it's one man just pushing the show, it will not happen. That then that's just one person's process. But what I've seen, alternate to what Chris has seen, is companies are very reluctant. They, especially in the manufacturing and automotive sector that I am from, is they are too slow to react to these things. And they expect, right first time, which is not possible with these technologies, right? I mean, you have to go into the mindset of fail fast, because otherwise, how are you going to learn that whole learning and experience that you programmed, right? To figure out exactly how much work it's going to do. How are you going to get it without doing it? You don't learn stuff without doing it. So you have to do it at a low level risk to be able to make sure that when you're pitching. So you do a 10K project to figure out. You don't have to spend 2 million, wasting on that. And that's the way is important.
Yeah. And as long as it connects into obviously the roadmap as well.
Yes,
absolutely. That's my next point, guys. Absolutely, a scaling roadmap, right? Another reason for failure is if you don't have this roadmap. So I always recommend start small, start with a POC. You mentioned it. If you have to fail fast. Fail, let's say, in an affordable manner, right? Not with a big, massive program.
Yeah.
So, but this roadmap has another advantage. It really gives people vision. It doesn't have to be super detailed out. And you can really, convince people, you get their buy-in. We are doing here something for a much, much bigger picture than just this small pilot here. And that's really how I think you get people's commitment and 100% of their dedication if you have at least a high-level scaling roadmap.
So get the C-suite involved, no matter how small it is, so that they become an essential part of its success, and then cascade it down into the bottom. Make sure buy-in from the bottom up as well. Yeah,
absolutely. The other thing I really think is missing talent, or let's say missing expertise for implementation, and missing can also say challenge in getting that. Getting people that know what they are doing. Again, a lot of these concepts are still evolving when you think about AI and other stuff, machine learning. So to get the right people, especially if you are a traditional company and all this stuff is driven by startups that work completely differently, getting this talent on your programs, the right people. A lot of companies out there, they sell you everything, whatever you want, right? Yeah. But at the end, it comes back is, do they have the expertise?
To add to your point, Chris, it's while I agree that the talent is the hard part to get for any organization, there are inherent issues that is caused by. Firstly, the technology is changing at rapid pace. So for what technologies are you going to start recruiting for, right? And justify it back to your business. So one thing is you cannot do it on your own, and not just by recruiting. You need to partner up with other organizations, other partners, and there are government funds to support you do that as well. Secondly, it's also about what these industries are portrayed as. I'm been in manufacturing for 8 years. I know it's one of the coolest places to work in, and especially in the role that I am in. But people outside, they don't see manufacturing that way. They see that as a dirty place to come in. So they would rather go and work for a startup with a better culture, where you can actually don't have to have these standard desks to sit. You have a lot more flexibility. You can bounce ideas off people. In traditional companies, you can't actually even talk to your boss with an idea because you are too junior. It doesn't matter. So I think that culture shift is also causes the issue of actually getting the right talent into the business.
Yeah. So a lack of integration, a lack of collaboration a lot of the time as well. I appreciate.
And I think this goes back to methodology again. If you apply, for example, Safe Agile the right way with a release train, you will break down these communication silos, because let's face it, at the end you need to have an end-to-end seamlessly integrated solution, and you have interdependencies, right? Yeah. So without collaboration, it will not work, and there's another big reason for failure. And last but not least, I would really say management support, C-level support, again, changing priorities, management commitment, right?
Which will go ahead. Crack silos out the way if they start to develop as well.
Let's face it, everyone is reluctant to change. Most probably so am I, right? So, and you will face that, and you will go through some rough weathers, and that's the time when you need these senior stakeholders to jump in and basically back the idea up, back the vision up. If they are changing the direction like a flag in the wind, you're doomed to fail. Simple as that.
Nish, 2 minutes. What do you think?
With my experience, I think one of the biggest things that I came across while I've been looking at Smart Factory is any big enterprise IT project, they always use waterfall method. And especially if it's a non-software company, right? So traditional mechanical organization, that's all they know. And even if you tell Agile, they think, it can only be done for software, which is never the case. It's a methodology, it's a mindset. So a lot of companies use waterfall approach to deliver these, high-tech solutions. They partner up, or they go through this big bidding process, which will take sometimes over a year to bring companies in which time you would have actually deployed some useful stuff. You partner with the organization, and then these big vendors are selling you the traditional solutions under the smart label, right? Just selling wireless communication as Industry 4.0 doesn't work. That's not what Industry 4 is about. So it starts to become vendor bias, and that's all they know, because that's who they trust, right? They don't have the time to go and figure it out themselves. So they start to lose trust. They're not getting the value that they were shown initially. And the project timeline and scope just starts to become, so big and so massive, because they want to do all of these cool things without understanding what is the core they're trying to solve, right? So if you're bringing in bad data, you can't expect a predictive algorithm to give you anything correct. So it's important that, all of these small elements have, and these are not new. These are what have led to the fall of traditional enterprise MAS, ERP projects. But this is what needs to be changed to make, to not fail in Smart Factory, really.
One other thing I would add that I see across the bigger programs is that a lack of detail, lack of knowledge at the ground level of just exactly what this is costing on an hourly basis, never mind daily, never mind weekly, monthly, etc. And it's that kind of lethargy meandering on, where all it takes is somebody to come on at the end of an hour and said that's another few thousand that we just had to write a check out for. What have you done in that last hour? I don't know. That's something I feel.
They were probably just in meetings in that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a 1 hour meeting or whatever. I'm confused between the two of you. These technologies, we call them new technologies, which makes me a little nervous. Are we the guinea pigs? Are they proven? Are they really out there? Or are we just hoping for the best from them? What do you feel, Nish? Because I know you're pretty passionate about it.
So these technologies, they're called emerging technologies, and for right reasons. They are few that are on the cutting edge. 5G, blockchain, absolutely. Even with AI, but a lot of the technologies that are required for smart factory have already existed, right? I mean, data collection is not new for factories. Doing data visualization, analysis, IoT devices, again, are relatively mature. So the technology is not what I feel is new. The technologies are proven, and if you look at the commercial space, we can track an Amazon order to when it's going to deliver. But in a workplace, we cannot track when a supplier is going to deliver an order at the same rate. So it's not technology what's stopping us. It is the business taking action of actually applying these technologies to the right problem statements. And that is what is missing for me.
Got it. Okay, good. We'll spin out to the audience to see what questions we've got coming in. We can pick up. We've got one here from Kishore Chowdhury. His question is, how can we implement smart factory using AI, ML, especially for the mechanical engineer to train into this technology? And what about opportunities in the future? Who wants to take that?
I can go. Chris, is that okay with you?
Sure. Go for it.
Yeah. So, this is something that I have personally been exploring. The technology side, as we have previously stated today, that it's not about a technology, it's about the problem statement that you're trying to solve. So once you know, right, in mechanical engineering, what are you trying to solve, right? What is the issue that you're getting today? And personally, I've seen, that issue in terms of redesign happening to and fro between the customer. That takes ages to come to one agreement. Whereas actually, if you can, today with the technology available, you can train and get, an algorithm to actually design something from scratch. And that's just off-the-shelf solutions. You can write it in Python, use Autodesk Fusion 360, and you can get these things done. So again, and it's not about applying AI or ML. You have to figure out. So AI or ML is not, you don't have to focus on, you have to apply AI or ML. You have to figure out the right problem statement and apply the right technology. And once you start doing that as a mindset and as a practice, then you can, irrespective of the industry, you can get benefit from it everywhere.
Got it. Very good. Christoph, anything you want to add? Anything you want to throw in there?
No, I'm not sure if I agree 100% with everything can be used in every industry. I think there are differences, and when we talk especially about machine learning and stuff like that, I mean, if you have a very labor-intensive process, you will never really benefit out of that, right? I mean, if you have a high automation level and stuff like that, then of course. So I think there are portions which can be transferred from industry to industry, absolutely, but I think not everything. That's just my only thing about that.
I think let's agree to disagree on that.
There are best practices, definitely. Okay, let us spin off to section 3, which is what makes a smart manufacturing deployment successful. Nish, you are first up.
So to make a smart factory deployment successful, it goes to basically, firstly, everything that I mentioned, that, what makes it, doing the opposite of what makes it unsuccessful. But the key thing being that you need to identify a product or a process owner, right? Who is going to be taking that solution on? Who needs to be part of that process of developing that? You cannot build a solution top down and force it down. Because when that happens, people are more reluctant. They don't have any intrinsic motivation to pick up that solution and champion it. But if they feel a part of building that solution, right, that you are taking the inputs, iterating, making the changes, getting the feedback, then they feel part of the solution, and they're more than happy to promote that to other parts of the company as well. And that is what is absolutely required.
Important involvement for anyone who is going to be impacted by this new solution. Absolutely.
Exactly. And secondly, utilizing agile methods. So you cannot be using traditional waterfall methods for this, because they don't work, especially when you're talking about these technologies. You need to be iterating quickly, right? You cannot forecast at the start of the project that these are exact steps that they're going to follow, because if you do that, then you're not accounting for every feedback that you might get or any changes that might need to be added in. So it's important that utilizing agile methods, you are creating smaller modular components as you go forward, testing that out, getting feedback, reiterating, and moving forward. And what you might come out with is, you might have thought that you need 100% of this solution, but actually you only needed 60% to achieve all the value, which means you have saved on time and the cost in delivering these projects.
Nice. Christoph, 2 minutes.
Absolutely. I would really say walk before you run. Again, I think I mentioned earlier, start small. Start small. If you think about smart manufacturing or smart factory, there are so many tools out there. Each of them, if you think about MES, augmented reality, machine learning, etc., each of them comes with a different, let's say, investment profile and also with a different business impact and risk. Pick something according to your business, right? Reflect you are not equal to all the other companies. That makes the most sense for you and where you can start and already realizing value. This would be really my number one advice. Number two, I would say
building momentum at all times. Rome wasn't built in the day. You've just got to keep building momentum up. Absolutely.
I mean, exactly. Create a fan base, right? I mean, as Nish mentioned, having people seeing this is successful, I see value in that, promoting it internally will make life so much easier. The other thing is set achievable goals. Again, so really do not overpromise and underdeliver. And some companies set the expectation, hey, with this initiative, we will bring down our downtimes by 30% as an example. My first question would be, okay, how can you make that bold statement? Do you know what's causing your downtime right now, right? So I would take a step back and say, okay, we will focus our energies on process X, Y, Z, for example, right? And we want to achieve certain improvements, but really rather go the route and under-promise and over-deliver.
Yep. Got it. As long as the roadmap shows how it all connects up for the bigger picture, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then also really select the right team. Nish mentioned it as well, a product owner, process owner internally, but also when you partner up with external parties.
Yeah.
Right. Because most of these initiatives are joint collaboration. And never forget, you should drive it because it's your transformation, not the one of your vendor or supplier. But really make sure that either way, the internal people that you pick on your team or the people that you ask for external consulting for, that they have the expertise, that they have done that you can learn from them, that they can coach you, right? Here again,
I mean, there's got to be
easily oversold.
Yeah. And there's got to be some best practices out there already, surely. And that's why you're bringing the expertise in.
Absolutely.
And to add in, one thing that I've seen in my role is if you especially speak to other manufacturers who are going through the same journey, they're more than happy to speak to you. And you can reduce your learning curve, so much by doing that. When you start to share and other people start to share, and it doesn't even have to be companies who are directly your customers. It can be. But I've also come across companies where I have done knowledge sharing, and they actually told me about, hey, this startup is doing some really good work, and we have really got some good value out of them. And then we started to work with them because we saw and they've actually cut down the research that we would have to do to find that, right? So it irrespective of the industry, that's something that really helps. And I think it's important there to. Then if you are leading that, you start to also share that knowledge with your supply chain and with your customers, because if they can improve as well.
Got it. Good.
And last but not least, I would say there's really the 3 Ps actually, right? It's really platform, people, process. And what I've seen in the past is a lot of companies spend too much time on the platform, again, technology, versus spending the right amount on the people, onboarding them, having the right mindset established. I mean, again, even its acceptance of failure and other stuff, Nish, but then also process. How will smart manufacturing really integrate with my lean manufacturing strategy, right? And other processes that are going on.
Which leads me on to a big point, which is how many times and how you deal with walking into a very large, big program, whereas the reality, the organization is just not ready for it from a people perspective. What do you do in that situation where you're going to have to line up and say it's 100%, but we can only actually do 10%? How do you deal with that?
I think as long as the vision, again, the roadmap is there, you can tell people that, hey, listen, we will start smaller for all these technologies. you will not get any business value until it's live in production and it's used.
Yep.
That's a fact.
Right.
So I rather do 10% now than 100% never. Correct?
Yeah.
And that's I think everyone would have, like, this is common sense. Let's start smaller. You guys will be then our champions to even use it for the communication inside the organization. So I think you can overcome that reluctance pretty quickly, as long as you have a roadmap. Otherwise, people will just question, I mean, does this really make sense? I mean, what should be the impact of that?
Beautiful.
Right? They need to be able to connect the dots.
Okay, we've got questions coming in left, right, and center right now. Let's jump to some of those. I'm just going to try and pick those up. The first one from Vishal Jadhav. Will there be any change in traditional manufacturing process? Robotics as an example. What about micro factories? Who wants to run it? Nish, you ready?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, no, I personally absolutely believe this is something that's, the whole processes and how manufacturing industry is set up is going to change, especially with the topic of servitization. Instead of just building machines and selling it to large OEMs, a lot of companies in other industries have gone into service-based business. So they're selling charged by the use of the machine, which reduces the cost. And that's the same thing applicable for how the industries are set up. Utilizing of robots, more companies are starting to use cobots instead of traditional robots. And micro factories, absolutely. If you can create a model where it's sustainable, there's no reason why, if there's an opportunity, people will, it's much less cost to build that than to build another engine factory today, right? So it's absolutely where the industry is going towards, and there will be a lot of disruptors coming on the way. If the big companies don't change, then the small ones will make them.
Very good, very good. Okay, let's take the next question. Which smart technologies have you been seen best at bringing together IT and OT? Quick one for you, for Christoph, but really I guess it's Nish, because I know you've been looking daily at this kind of stuff. So I'm going to come to you again, Nish, if I may.
Yeah, I mean, I would take that. So my point is really, you cannot. There's not such a thing like a silver bullet, and I don't want to be in a position. It depends, right? It depends the business you are in, because again, if you are a company heavily focused on automation, very little labor, then the solution or the feedback I would give is different than if you are in a let's say environment which is highly labor intensive in a final assembly area, right? Where except a couple of torque guns and some conveyor belts, there is not much there. So making that statement, I think, again, it always depends on which industry you are in and what you try to solve. And then I think with the right consultants, you can have an answer on that.
Good. Nish, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I think it's, for me, the first part with any of these smart factory technology and solutions, irrespective if you are labor intensive or not, is data collection. The data collection is a primary element. If you're not doing that, even on manual side, you can collect data. And it might not be in a sustainable way that you're doing it today, but that's where you have to begin. Once you start collecting the data and connecting that to the processes and visualizing what's happening, and then you start to make incremental changes in terms of, okay, understanding from the data, what is that data telling me, or what is that data not telling me that I want to know, and based on that you can apply the right technologies on that to build up.
Wouldn't you not ask the other way around? Before I start collecting data, I would ask myself why I'm collecting it for, rather than looking at it.
I agree, you would, but you have to, for every process that you're doing in the business, like for example, in any traditional manufacturing, you will be collecting OEE data, right? Failure data, to the cycle time. So, but you'd be surprised how many SMEs are not able to do that or ignore that activity. Right, or they're not doing it in the automated way that you can, because there's somebody going about doing this every day manually across all systems and then plotting it in Excel, where we know that the technology exists where you don't need expensive sensors and technologies for this. You can connect stuff and start collecting data. Again, with IT, with the bigger the company gets, there are more IT restrictions in terms of what you can do, and the process becomes longer. But my first step with any of this is, you start to make data-driven decisions, and that is the key mindset that you have to pick up.
Good. Thanks. Next question. Let's jump. What do we got? Okay, there we go. Well, from Hicham, what are the cybersecurity risks of these technologies, and how do we mitigate them? Christoph, you want to have another run?
No, I think that's the one for Nish, no?
That's a niche one. Go for it, buddy.
That's a controversial. No, so I mean, absolutely, cybersecurity has to be a center of everything that you do with smart factory, right? Because we see and we hear news with healthcare industry and other places getting ransomware hacks and stuff, and you don't want to be in that situation when you're producing, you're controlling robots and stuff, and you can get your situation when robots are making more robots, but where the biggest thing is, you have to identify, right, where those risks are. You have to be relatively transparent as an organization, and with your IT teams work together in solving them. What I traditionally have seen happen is there's this sort of cry that it's a cybersecurity issue, and so we won't do anything. Right, we're not going to do smart factory because we're not going to connect these systems because it's a cybersecurity issue. But what is it like? Is there a way that we can go around that? People also say, we don't want to share our data. It has IP in it, but not all data has IP related to that, especially if you're anonymizing a lot of part of that data. So you can still get value out of that. So it's looking carefully, just not raising cybersecurity as a get out of jail free card for anything that you want to do, and not doing, and making that as an excuse and not doing anything. What you have to do is absolutely understand every process that you do, any connectivity you do, make sure you utilize the right processes, make sure you're using certified stuff, but you need to work together to identify what that issue is and try to find a way, because there's always a way around. You might only get 80% of the functionality that you initially intended, but it's still 80% more than what you would have got if you have not done anything.
Yeah, I think this is a really hot topic, especially when you think about regulated industries. I mean, if you think about really, I would say, aerospace or defense specifically, right, with all the ITAR stuff, etc., which is already a challenge in some projects, but now really talking about smart manufacturing is even a bigger hurdle, I would say. Or also, if you think about pharma, right, or everything that is FDA regulated. So I think it's definitely a topic we have to watch, and there has to be a solution developed for that.
Okay, good. Let's move on. Last section, and we can come back to one or two questions. But how do you go about making the correct business case? Christoph, lead us away.
Thanks. I really think, again, normally a lot of companies still create the business case for smart manufacturing the traditional way. And smart manufacturing is one way to save costs, I would say, right? I think that's not the only answer why to go smart manufacturing. So it's really one thing. I mean, customer demands and expectations, they are changing or evolving constantly, right? And right now, I would really say mass customization is one of these trends. Having that said, I think companies are striving for agility and flexibility. So what's that worth to me? That I'm able to adjust my manufacturing environment fast. And I have a couple of examples about that. I mean, no matter what, change brings opportunities, right? And just think about it in this pandemic, how many of these alcohol or liquor manufacturers changed their program basically in producing disinfectants, or textile companies producing safety masks, or other companies producing face shields, right? So I think this whole smart manufacturing business case has to have a much broader view, maybe stuff that is not so easy to measure, because really it definitely brings opportunities. I mean, the other thing is think about compliance. We talked about that earlier. What is the value for me if this tool helps me really to provide end-to-end traceability for any regulated products, right? Electronic build records, substance specifications, stuff like that in the pharma. Sustainability, carbon footprint, think about it, right? What is in for the environment, right? This is also, you can use that again to promote your products, right? Depending on your carbon footprint, but also will you save energy? Will you save energy with these solutions? Will you reduce waste across the entire product life cycle of a product? So those are all questions I think that should go as well into a business case. Again, some of these are maybe a little bit harder to measure, than the pure cost reduction. And then again, one thing that is for sure, I really think if companies do not start the next 12 to 24 months to invest into smart manufacturing and don't get that ball rolling, competition is investing, right? And I think one thing that we all know for sure, if we don't change, if we don't advance, if we do not evolve, we are losing. We are just falling behind the competition.
You're going backwards. You got it. You got it. Nish, jump in. How do you build that business?
This is one thing that's always frustrated me, that people overthink making the business case when it comes to smart manufacturing digital solution. And also, I don't like hearing that, smart manufacturing is expensive. Because when you say that, you're not thinking long term and you're not evaluating, you're just basically, going off from one perspective. As in any organization, when you're considering any of these projects, as we have said earlier, you have to look at the problem statement first, right? So when you look at a problem statement, you can already identify what are you spending, just doing the way the things you are today. You could be doing a manual activity, I said, about data collection today. That takes you about 8 hours a day, right? For that person, that's just doing that. Even they do it once a week, and do that, every week. How many man hours are you spending on that with currently? Whereas you could use technology off the shelf today to automate that aspect, and you've saved on that, right? So it's not that difficult. So if you look at the loss of opportunity today, the look at what it costs in man hours, efficiency, productiveness for the company, and is this a task that I'm gonna, for the next 10 years, have somebody willing to do, right? Material handling is not something that, graduates coming out of schools or even apprentices want to be doing, right? They want to be doing something cool. So you will not have people available to do these things. So you have to start looking at the bigger perspective. So the key to this is also that, there needs to be a top-down support in terms of strategy from top-level management, that, they cannot cut you a blank check, but they need to agree that, there is an X amount that we are willing to spend. And then from bottom up, you bring individual problem statements with ROIs, as you do with any case, and, basically take that out. And when these two are working together with a top-down and bottom-up approach, you start to get a business case. And, there will be certain business case that doesn't make sense because, you might not know everything what the management level knows. But that is fine because, that is the communication that doesn't happen today. Instead of just saying no to ideas, give them a reason, right? Tell them why it doesn't work and figure out if there's a way to make it work, or if it doesn't work, they can move on to the next thing.
Love it. Love it. Gentlemen, thanks so much. We're going to jump out to audience questions now. Let's see what we've got first up. We've got quite a few coming in here. First one from Makala. Hi, Makala. Good to see you again. Have you been able to measure the exact ROI of a smart factory implementation? Nish,
I would say, yeah. I mean, as I mentioned before, yes, like you go it for modular components, you can. If you go for a, starting of the project, you want to say that, oh, I'm going to give you an ROI for the entire smart factory. That's not possible. You go with the modular approach, you go with MVPs, you pick up on, this is what the problem is costing us today. And this is, how much you're going to be spending to identify that. And if we're doing it in those smaller chunks, you are able to figure out if you need to spend more or not. And you are able to, iterate to get it to the right solution. So this way you are able to get that ROI, and you don't have to wait 3-5 years to get that. You can get that much quicker than that.
I have just one comment. On that. Again, it's a challenge that I've seen amongst my customers. So now let's say you collect all this data, Nish, right? But just by collecting it and analyzing it, nothing will change. You will use that to trigger the continuous improvement process. And a lot of companies have then, for example, shop floor management in place and other stuff. Now, the question will be, what is really delivering the ROI? Just the data that you got, or actually the people solving it? And I have seen a lot of people struggling. Then again, you have all these initiatives that work together at the end. How to really break it out, who contributed actually what in this whole.
You need to add to that. There is a point that is essential with any of these topics is exploration. You have to do a first element of exploration with any of these technology problems. So data analysis is part of exploration, and then you start to do the application element of it. And the application, as you had previously stated, is what gives you the ROI and the value back to the business. But if you don't do the exploration, you would never know if there is an application or not. So you have to be able to do that part of the activity.
Boom. Good. Next question. We've got a lot coming in here. I don't know how many we'll get through. One from Umi. How have you seen integrating the value chain benefiting the organization through using Industry 4 technologies, I guess? Nish?
Yeah, okay. So I think, the biggest thing is you get
issues, guys.
Pardon me? What's up, Christoph? Looks like we're losing Christoph here. Miami's struggling in a hurricane or something. I don't know.
Okay. I'll continue then. Yeah. So as I was saying that, this value chain, you start to get benefit from that when you're connecting your suppliers and your customers, right? When you do that, there's a very basic example I come across LinkedIn a couple of years ago. There's a big laser, machine manufacturer company, which takes about 7 months for them to build a machine. But when you order with them, you can get an exact date and time of delivery 7 months in advance, right? And the reason they are able to do that is because they have a connected, supply and value chain created. And today, you look at a lot of these companies, they make much less complicated stuff, and they cannot, do this type of activity. And orders are delayed, and also, it's also building your suppliers up with you, because if you can know when products are coming in, what quality they're coming in, and track that, as I said with the Amazon thing, if you're able to track these orders, the quality and stuff like that, as you do in your personalized, you can make data-driven decisions, right? You can actually plan your resources correctly, so you start to get benefit from that. And moving forward, I think with a distributed supply chain concept, I believe that this is going to become even more and more important when you're working at a global scale and you want to be deploying everywhere, and maybe deploying global but making it local. You would have to have that connected structure in place.
Yeah. And let me add, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I hope I'm not breaking up. No, I think, again, I have also seen this, even in the pharmaceutical industry, a lot of companies are partnering up with their suppliers, right? And you have production steps which are just being performed outside of your factory. So by having you integrated with your suppliers really gives you this end-to-end traceability, which is required sometimes from legal regulations. But on the other side, also, if any problem occurs for yourself, for your continuous improvement process.
Very good. Very good. Gentlemen, we are pretty much down to the wire now. We are there. We've got a whole bunch more questions in the feed that we're going to need to get to. So I'll call us time out. What I'd love you to do is we'll get you into this feed, answer the remaining questions if you both would. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Nish. It's been great having you here. The energy I loved. Christoph, thanks. Good for coming back in again. I'm going to see you again in a couple of weeks. Gentlemen, thanks both ever so much. Let's jump into that feed. And everyone, check out Nish's podcast. There's a lot of good people in there. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Everyone, thanks. Have a great week ahead. We're going to keep you informed of what we've got coming up in the next few days. It's quite a special one, so I'm going to keep you hanging on for that. But thanks ever so much for attending. Have a great week ahead. See you in a few days. Thanks.